What if a quiet janitor, hidden in plain sight for decades, was the heart of an entire school, and no one noticed until it was almost too late? At 80 years old, he was still mopping floors, until one former student returned and changed everything. What happened next left an entire town speechless. Stay to the end, you won't believe how the story unfolds. Sparkles, comment below where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support more powerful stories like this one. Caroline Levitt stepped through the side entrance of Jefferson High School's gymnasium, her heels clicking gently against the old polished floor. Dressed in a modest blazer, her presence was quiet, almost hesitant. She hadn't set foot in this place in over a decade, not since the day she tossed her graduation cap into the air and left for a life far beyond this small-town school. Now, nearly 30 and rising fast in the world of politics, Caroline wasn't here for speeches or spotlights. She just wanted to revisit the place that shaped her. But it wasn't nostalgia that stopped her in her tracks. As she looked down the hallway, a familiar silhouette caught her eye, a man, slightly stooped, moving slowly, pushing a mop bucket beside him. Even from a distance, she recognized the gentle sway of his stride, the way his shoulders dipped with the rhythm of the mop. Her heart caught in her chest. It was Mr. Reynolds. The school janitor. 80 years old now, yet still walking the same halls, still doing the same work. For a long moment, Caroline just stared. The laughter from the alumni gathering behind her faded into a hush. Memories flooded back, sticky lunch trays, dusty lockers, whispered jokes before class. And always, Mr. Reynolds, humming softly, sweeping floors with quiet pride. She hadn't expected this. No one would have. And in that moment, something shifted. What began as a simple visit became the spark for something far greater, something that would change not only Mr. Reynolds' life but the heart of the school itself. Caroline stood in the corner of the gym's entrance hall, the soft echo of laughter from alumni parties reverberating behind her. But her eyes were locked on a scene ahead, a man, older than she remembered, quietly moving through the hallway with a mop in hand. Mr. Reynolds. Still here. Still working. At 80. Her heart tightened. He moved with less ease now. His steps were slower, his back slightly bent. Yet, in each careful motion, straightening chairs, wiping a small spill, there was the same quiet grace he'd always carried. The same dignity. Time hadn't dulled him. It had only added to the reverence she felt. Caroline's memory swirled back. Being 15, too embarrassed to admit she had no lunch money. The gentle moment when Mr. Reynolds pressed $1 into her hand without a word. The day he found her crying beside a broken locker and silently fixed it while she tried to compose herself. And now, here he was again, still giving. But no one else seemed to notice. People in designer clothes strolled by him, laughing, sipping from sparkling cups, and not once turning their heads. He had become background. It made Caroline ache. This was the man who helped hold Jefferson High together. The quiet constant. The custodian not just of floors, but of hearts. She watched as he paused, leaning slightly on the mop handle to catch his breath. That brief flicker of fatigue made something inside her snap. She knew, in that instant, that her visit was no longer about reliving memories. It was about rewriting someone else's future. Caroline took a deep breath and stepped forward. Her footsteps echoed on the linoleum as she approached him. When she spoke, her voice was soft but firm. "Mr. Reynolds?" He turned slowly. His eyes, a little tired but still bright, lit up with recognition. "Caroline Levitt," he said, the name rolling off his tongue like a warm memory. "My goodness, it's been a while. Last I saw you, you were storming your way to the student council." She smiled. "You remember that?" "I remember all my kids," he replied, nodding. "You were always sharp. Like a spark plug ready to fire." Her smile faded into a more somber expression. "Why are you still here, Mr. Reynolds? You should be enjoying retirement." He gave a small shrug, unbothered. "Retirement's not free," Caroline. You want to eat, you work. Simple as that. There was no resentment in his tone. No anger. Just a quiet truth. No pension? Bits and pieces. Social security. It adds up to not enough. So I come in, mop a few floors, fix a few hinges, and go home tired. That's life. Caroline's throat tightened. She couldn't find words. Mr. Reynolds gave her a curious glance. What brings you back? Besides the alumni noise. Honestly? I was hoping for some memories. Instead, I found something real. He chuckled. You always were a thinker. They walked side by side through the hallway. He pointed out changes in the school, new paint on one wing, a broken vending machine in another. But she noticed the same things hadn't changed, the wear in his shoes, the calluses on his hands, the kindness in his voice. They paused near the old trophy case. You know, he said, I always told myself I'd retire when I felt useless. Funny thing is, I never did. There's always something to fix. Caroline looked up at him. You were never useless. Not even close. You helped me when no one else did. You helped a lot of us. He seemed surprised, but pleased. Just doing my job. She shook her head. You did more than that. There was silence between them. A heavy, thoughtful pause. Well, he said, tapping his mop handle on the floor, it's good to see you again, Caroline. You turned out all right. I'm not done yet, she replied. And neither are you. That night, Caroline sat in her hotel room, unable to sleep. Her mind kept replaying his words, his shrug, the casual way he accepted a life of exhaustion as if it were fate. And as the clock struck midnight, she opened her laptop. She had work to do. By the time the sun rose over Jefferson the next morning, Caroline was already wide awake. Dressed in sweats and clutching a steaming mug of coffee, she stared at her screen, fingers poised above her keyboard. She typed a name, Jessica Moore. A former classmate, now a respected financial advisor with a knack for smart solutions. Caroline hit the call button. Caroline Levitt. Well, this is a surprise. Hi Jess. I need your help. It's important, and it's not about me. Go on. Mr. Reynolds is still working at Jefferson. He's 80. Still cleaning floors, still fixing lockers. He's been there for decades. And it's not because he wants to. It's because he has to. Jessica fell silent. He needs to retire, Caroline continued. And he deserves to do it with dignity. I want to create a fund. A real one. Public, transparent, and fast. Can you set that up? Absolutely. I'll build a campaign portal, attach a secure payment system, and draft the foundation language. You'll need a goal, a name, and a compelling intro. Call it, Help Mr. Reynolds Retire with Dignity. Goal, $75,000. And I'll write the story myself. An hour later, Caroline sent the draft to Jessica, a heartfelt narrative about a janitor who touched lives without ever asking for anything in return. It ended with a simple call to action. If he ever handed you a piece of candy, a smile, or a second chance, now's the time to give something back. By lunch, the site was live. Caroline made the first donation, $1,000. Anonymous. She sent the link with a short message, you remember Mr. Reynolds. You know what to do. Then she texted Principal Eagle. He responded in less than 5 minutes, Caroline, this is beautiful. I'm all in. Let me know how I can help. That night, she watched the numbers. 20 donations in the first hour. 50 by dinner. Messages flowed in with them, he walked me to my mom's car when I was scared to go home. He let me cry in the storage closet after my dog died. He always said good morning. Every day. No one else did. Tears streamed down her face as she read each one. Every dollar wasn't just money, it was memory, respect, love. Jessica called back. It's going viral. Local news might pick it up. Should we raise the goal? Caroline took a deep breath. Let's see what happens by morning. But deep inside, she already knew. The world was finally about to see the man she had never stopped admiring. By the next morning, the quiet digital corner dedicated to Mr. Reynolds had become a beacon. Caroline checked the donation page with groggy eyes and her morning coffee in hand, and nearly dropped the mug. $25,318. In less than 12 hours. She refreshed the page 3 times. It wasn't a mistake. The messages poured in alongside the donations. He stayed late to help me clean up after my science fair display. Mr. Reynolds once shoveled the walkway for my mom when she came to pick me up. He gave me lunch money. Twice. Never said a word. Caroline scrolled through them with a lump in her throat. The entire school community had remembered. All it had taken was a little light. By noon, local reporters had started to pick up the story. A small article ran in the Jefferson County Chronicle with the headline, "Beloved Janitor's Retirement Fund Soars Overnight." Caroline didn't care about the attention, but she welcomed the momentum. Jessica called again. We're going to need to move this to a formal trust. At this rate, he's not just retiring, he's retiring with options. By the end of day 2, the total had climbed to over $67,000. The fundraiser link spread like wildfire across Facebook groups, alumni forums, and even found its way onto Twitter. People who had graduated decades ago donated from across the country. Caroline received a call from a woman in Texas. He walked me to the nurse's office after I fainted in gym class. He held my hand the whole way. I've never forgotten it. Some donations came in anonymously. Some with notes. All with love. Then came the call from Principal Eagle. We want to do something special, Caroline. A formal assembly. We'll bring him into the gym under some excuse, and we'll surprise him. Think you can be here? I wouldn't miss it. The gymnasium was decorated in school colors, blue and silver streamers hanging from the rafters. Rows of folding chairs lined the floor, filled with teachers, students, alumni, and a few curious reporters who had caught wind of something heartwarming. Caroline stood near the stage, heart fluttering. Mr. Reynolds had no idea. Principal Eagle had told him there was a facilities meeting. Something about equipment upgrades. A harmless little fib. When he walked in, mop in hand, wearing his usual Jefferson high cap, the room fell still. Then the lights brightened. The curtain lifted. Principal Eagle took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to honor someone who has never asked for recognition, who has never demanded attention, and yet has given more to this school than most of us ever could. Murmurs of agreement passed through the audience. Mr. Reynolds, Eagle continued, for over 5 decades, you've walked these halls. You've made this place shine, literally and figuratively. You've been a steady presence through change, challenge, and celebration. You've seen generations grow. And you've always done it with quiet dignity. Mr. Reynolds looked stunned. His mop slipped from his fingers. He turned as if to walk away, then hesitated. Caroline stepped forward. Mr. Reynolds, it's time. He looked at her, eyes wide. Time for what? She gestured to the screen above the stage. The projector lit up. $137,492. The room erupted. Caroline took the microphone, her voice clear, emotional. This money, every penny of it, was raised by the people whose lives you've touched. The kids you helped. The parents you greeted. The teachers you supported. The souls you quietly lifted. It's yours. To rest. To travel. To enjoy every morning without a mop. Mr. Reynolds just stood there. Silent. Then his lips trembled. I don't know what to say. You've said it every day for years. With your kindness. With your presence. Now it's our turn. She walked to him and embraced him tightly. The crowd stood and clapped. Some wept. All cheered. He whispered in her ear. I didn't think they remembered me. She pulled back and smiled. How could we ever forget? The story of Mr. Reynolds didn't end on that gymnasium stage. In many ways, that moment was only the beginning. Over the following week, newspapers across the country carried the story. National news outlets picked it up, calling it a lesson in everyday heroism. Talk shows reached out for interviews. A popular podcast episode titled The Mop That Moved a Nation received millions of downloads. But Mr. Reynolds wasn't interested in becoming a celebrity. Instead, he did something simpler and far more touching. He came back to Jefferson High one last time. Not to work, but to give. With Principal Eagle's help, he donated a portion of the money to create the Reynolds Scholarship Fund, dedicated to helping students with financial hardship, just like the girl with the empty lunch tray years ago. Caroline stood beside him as they signed the documents. You didn't have to do this. I know, he said. But I wanted to. He bought himself a used truck, a cozy house in a nearby town, and a cat named Pepper. He started gardening, attending senior yoga, and even learned to email. He wrote handwritten thank you notes to everyone who left an address on their donation. Caroline visited him often. They'd talk about everything from politics to poetry to the birds nesting in his backyard. And whenever she had a hard day, she'd remember the moment she saw him in the hallway, alone, working, invisible to the world. Not anymore. The world had seen him now. And he had finally been allowed to rest. Years later, long after the gym lights dimmed and the applause faded, Jefferson High still told the story. Freshmen who never met Mr. Reynolds heard about him during orientation. His picture, smiling warmly with his mop and cap, hung framed outside the principal's office. Beneath it, a plaque read, Dignity in Service, Legacy and Kindness, Mr. Harold Reynolds. The scholarship he started grew over time. Caroline helped manage it alongside Jessica, ensuring it continued to support the kids who needed it most. Every May, a new student received the Reynolds Award, a full scholarship and a letter from Mr. Reynolds himself, written years prior in simple, heartfelt language. Caroline never forgot him. And neither did the school. Because sometimes, it's not the loudest voice or the flashiest deed that leaves a legacy. Sometimes, it's a mop, a smile, and a man who never asked to be seen. But changed everything when someone finally did. The halls of Jefferson High would never forget him. And neither would the hearts he quietly held for so many years. The end.